Salvete discipuli. In this video, we will study the issue of the sequence of tenses in the indirect statement construction. The sequence of tenses in indirect statement constructions. Okay, so if you want to review the overall concept of the indirect statement construction, I have a video on that you can find just by searching Massey indirect statement. This video is going to focus on the concept of the sequence of tenses, okay? So again, an overall indirect statement is you have some type of a verb that introduces the indirect statement. Here we're just going to have dicit says. After we have that, in English, we frequently say says that. Latin has no word that corresponds to that, but it's comfortable to add it in English. Then the subject of the indirect statement is in the accusative. Okay? Usually accusative is for our objects, and indeed, this accusative here is an object. But in an indirect statement, accusative is the subject, not of what we call a finite verb, meaning a verb with regular verb endings. Instead, the verb in an indirect statement is the infinitive. And as we're going to study, how we translate that infinitive depends on whether this is a present tense verb or a perfect tense verb. So, Quintus says that Grumio is preparing dinner. All kinds of different verbs can introduce an indirect statement. The same sentence, Quintus sees that Grumio is preparing dinner. Quintus believes that Grumio is preparing dinner. Quintus hopes that Grumio is preparing dinner. Quintus hears that Grumio is preparing dinner. Basically, any verb of perceiving, knowing, believing, feeling, things like that can introduce an indirect statement. Okay, so back to our main sentence here. Quintus dicit. Quintus says that Grumio is preparing dinner. When you have a present tense verb here, the present tense infinitive is translated present tense. So says and is preparing. Look what happens when I say said. Quintus dixit. Now it's the same word, parare. This is the present tense. Now look what happened. We translate that as said. It's no longer is preparing. It has now become translated as if it were imperfect, was preparing. As a general rule, the past tense verb introducing the indirect statement forces the infinitive to take one step into past tense. So here are the tenses in the order of kind of how they go back in time. Okay, so present tense, this is what's happening now. Imperfect, like was doing. Okay, even deeper in the past from was doing is perfect tense, did. One step even deeper into the past from perfect tense is pluperfect, had done. Okay, so the idea is we've got a present tense infinitive and we have a perfect tense infinitive, and if we have a perfect tense verb that introduces the indirect statement, this is going to shift 1 degree into the past. This is going to shift 1 degree into the past in our English translation. Again, it's the same word in Latin. It's just depending how we translate it. Okay, so now let's have a present tense verb here. Quintus dicit, Quintus says. Okay, but now I'm going to use the perfect tense infinitive. Parawisse. Okay, when you have a present tense verb here, you're going to translate the perfect tense infinitive as just a regular past tense. Quintus says that Grumio prepared dinner. Now, look what's going to happen, people. Dixit, okay? If we now say Quintus said, okay, so we're introducing the indirect statement with a perfect tense verb. What's going to happen? This perfect tense infinitive is going to shift 1 degree into the past. Okay, so perfect tense is going to be translated as pluperfect, had prepared. Quintus said that Grumio had prepared dinner. Metella audit quintum epistulam scribere. Okay, so Metella hears that Quintus is writing a letter. Again, present tense, everybody is translated present tense. What do we do if we now say audiwit, heard, okay? So remember, this was is writing a letter. Using the sequence of tenses, we now need to shift this 1 degree into the past because the indirect statement was introduced by a perfect tense verb. Metella heard that Quintus was writing a letter. Imperfect is was writing. And again, remember, it's the same word, it's the same present tense infinitive. It's just that we're translating it as imperfect because the indirect statement was introduced by a perfect tense verb. Okay, scripsisse, that is the perfect tense infinitive. So take a moment, think about what you need to do. You should say to yourself, well, I know this is a perfect tense infinitive. It would be translated in isolation as to have written, but how we translate it in the sentence depends on this word right here. Present tense, how do we translate? Metella hears that Quintus wrote a letter. That's right. If it's present tense here, this is translated as just a simple past tense. However, what if we now make it audiwit? Metella heard quintum epistulam scripsisse. Shift it 1 more degree in the past. Had written a letter. Okay. Grumio nuntiat cenam paratam esse. I wanted to throw this in just so you know. Esse is the infinitive of the verb to be. Okay, so in isolation, you would translate esse as just to be. And we've got here a present tense verb, announces. And so present tense, Grumio announces that dinner is ready. What do we do now if we shift it? Nuntiavit, announced. Remember, 1 degree into the past. Grumio announced that dinner was ready. Now, 1 quick reminder. Not every indirect statement is going to be constructed as I've done with like the first part of it being the so-and-so said element. That can come last. So look at this right here. Caecilius audiwit. This means Caecilius heard, okay? That introduces the indirect statement grammatically, even though it comes last in the sentence, okay? Intravisse is our perfect tense infinitive, which we're going to translate as pluperfect because this is perfect tense. Caecilius heard that Quintus had entered the study.